Hey everyone, Zach here. And today I'm going to walk through using Ansible to manage my holiday lighting at my house. I thought this was fun. All the TV shows I'm watching are having Christmas episodes, so why not have an Ansible Christmas episode? And what I'm going to be leaning on is Kasa Smart Home Devices. So this is a product owned by TP-Link. I'm not a spokesperson for them by any means. It just happens to be a tool set that I've used in my house, both with plugs and switches. And fortunately, they have a really nice Python library that was written by the open source community, which I previously had wrapped into an Ansible collection. So you'll notice in this blog post linked, I have another post that kind of introduces how to leverage that collection to do smart device, discovery and then various actions with the devices. So I'm going to be leaning on that today and then focusing on how to use that to manage the holiday lights in my house. So first off, there's some prereqs for your environment. Of course, ideally you'll have some Kasa smart devices. If you don't, feel free to read through this blog and see how you could apply it to whatever suite of home automation tooling that you have. And a lot of those tool sets, especially if you don't have any and are looking to buy some, you can do some pre-research to see who has Python libraries or other integrations already built out. A really popular open source tool, Home Assistant, has a ton of integrations, so a lot of these toolkits do have libraries that can be leveraged and potentially wrapped in Ansible content as well. So for me, I'm going to be using TP-Link, as I mentioned. The library is called Python-Kasa, and I've got a screenshot here of just kind of what it looks like in the Kasa Smart Home app on my phone, which I could be using to manage these things. And I'm really trying to call out that, of course, I could just use the app and I could do scheduling there. It is kind of limited, but also what if I wanted to talk or work with more than just the Kasa smart devices, integrate multiple different platforms into one schedule? Ansible would be a great way to do that. So that's kind of why I'm showing it off this way. One thing I'll note that if you have Python Kasa installed on a node that you're going to use to run the Ansible, what you can actually do is, if I actually go to my terminal here, I have a Raspberry Pi. I can type Kasa Discover, and I'm just going to specifically look for a device that has the name Christmas. So I've got a Christmas tree, and this discovery actually would have found any of the Kasa smart home devices on my network. I particularly isolated this one because I know it's one that I'm going to be working with today, but you can get some cool information, right? You can get your host's IP and the device type, the MAC address, other things. And this is the type of information that's going to be the Ansible modules are using under the hood. The other thing I'll note is that if you do have any issues discovering things, I did have to create a firewall rule for 9999 over UDP to accept the broadcast messages that are coming from the Kasa devices. So if you're typing Kasa Discover, nothing's showing up, and you're like, I know I have Kasa smart devices that are working, they're connected to the app, try setting up your firewall rules to make sure that you can see those messages that are coming across the network. So going back to the Ansible work, I'm going to actually click over into my GitHub repo, and I'll zoom in a little bit for you guys here. And you'll see that I have a playbook that's being used today, and I really tried to write this as generic as possible. The reason for that is because I'm going to schedule it for both on and off, and I wanted to show how I could have a single job template and actually just parameterize the schedules to keep things simple. So the first thing I'm going to do here is make sure that I'm passing in a list of devices that I want to manage, which is that assert statement here. And then I'm using the Kasa Discovery module, which actually pulls the same information that I just showed manually on my Raspberry Pi. And I do that so that I can actually convert from a user input of the name of the device to the actual IP address. So the discovery is going to allow me to do that mapping, which if I scroll down here, you'll see in the next step where I actually do the smart device management. You'll notice I'm using a filter plugin, which is in this collection as well, which is going to map that device name that's given from the user to an IP address and use it as the target parameter for the smart device module. And then of course I also allow the user to specify the state. And that's as complicated as the playbook is. So effectively what you do is you provide a list of objects which have a device name and then a device state. And this playbook will loop over that, and it will set the Kasa devices in your home to the desired states. So how does that look in Ansible Automation Platform? I've got my job template here, which is tied to that playbook. The only credential I needed was my SSH credential because I'm actually running the playbook on my Raspberry Pi, which I showed in my terminal earlier. You could have the Python Kasa in your execution environment and run this locally as well. But for me, I went ahead and just running it on my Raspberry Pi. And then if I go to schedules here, you'll notice I have two schedules tied to this job template. So one of them is actually going to turn off the Christmas lights in the morning, and then it turns them on for me at night. It's kind of nice, right? It's one to do off the list every day. And if I click on this, kind of the key part here is I'm actually able to set extra variables for the schedule itself, right? So that allows me to have the one job template. I got infinite schedules, right? And for my turn on, you'll notice that my state is enabled for my various devices. If I go back to schedules and I go to morning, you'll notice my state is disabled. So that's kind of turning on or off the lights with the exact same job template. So I think that's pretty cool. And if I go to jobs, we'll actually see that this morning at 9:30, I had this playbook run. And if I go to the details, I should see my extra vars, right? My state is disabled. And then if I went and scroll down to the output, you'll notice that it was turning each of the devices off, right? So I, around 9:30 in the morning, could obviously set this to whatever time I want. I'll turn them off. And that's pretty much it. So it's kind of cool, right? I don't have to go in and remember to click the button on the app. And if I wanted to add other types of devices into the same workflow, I could do that in the same playbook, which is the real benefit of using Ansible over using the native scheduling in Kasa. So if you enjoyed that, stay tuned if you want a live demo of my Christmas tree turning on and off. But I hope you found this useful, and happy holidays, everyone.